Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Africa Industry 4.0 Forum. We are glad to have you here. We always focus about the customer, how we can be able to have a better turnaround time, and how we can be able to give them a better customer experience. As you embrace digital transformation, make sure that even as you give in the end product, they've been given such a nice and lovely end-to-end process from the point of inception to completion. They've had the best customer engagement. You enjoy the best turnaround time in your organization. Ensure that you're able to track and monitor your process even remotely. This is what we are going to talk about, and we want to ensure that we enable our organizations to the point where they can embrace this Internet of Things and actually say that I was served in a way that they have never been served before. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in a digital era and we cannot be able to run from it. We want to ensure that we come up with these smart factories and where we can be able to give them quality and give them the best that they deserve. We focus on the client, we enable them, and we make sure that our ecosystem is communicating to each other. Regardless of the many branches that we have, we need to ensure that our ecosystem is communicating to each other. And to give us a discussion on the industrialization in the digital era, we have none other than the head of customer and ecosystem enablement at CISPRO Africa. This is none other than Doug Hunter. Welcome, Doug, and over to you as you lead us in this conversation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks a lot. I guess you can relax and have a coffee now. So I'm Doug Hunter. I'm going to take you through about 120 years of industrialization up to the digital era. It's quite a lot in 15 minutes. However, welcome. Thank you for listening. Here we go. So I'm just going to tell you a bit about CISPRO, the company I work for, and then we'll get into the guts of the thing. Industry 4.0 really is the soul of the digital era. It's what's driving productivity. It's what's helping us get the best out of technology and humans. And then the focus of I4 or the digital era, they're kind of the same thing. And then I'm going to go through some of the tools of the trade, how technology, both process automation and business, so that's technical process automation and business process automation, on driving the digital era. And then, of course, we all want to know what is the value of this. Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of CISPRO. CISPRO is an independent software provider of enterprise resource planning software. And our focus is to simplify the business processes of manufacturing and distribution for the customers that we deal with, and we focus on manufacturers and distributors of products. As you can see, we're in 60 countries, or more than 60 countries. We've got 12 regional offices around the world, and we've been around for over 40 years. During that 40 years, we've accumulated more than 15,000 customers globally. You can see we have a wide spread of customers in Africa, and we also have an office in Nairobi. A key factor for us is the fact that everybody in the business really comes from or understands manufacturing and distribution, even down to the developers. So for more information, please go to the chat room, which is part of this forum, and we'll move on. So getting to the subject matter, I4, I called it digital era soul because to me, it's like the heart and the rhythm of what's happening these days in industrialization. Although I'm in the IT business, I'm really an engineer at heart, and I was involved in some of these revolutions, in fact. So if you look, where does it come from? The first one down the bottom left there was the first industrial revolution. And that was in the 18th century, where most processes were manual and people had very local markets. So you made shoes for the people round about you, things like that. And then a lot of Scottish people, my forefathers, started to use steam. And so a lot of steam started to enable machinery, which automated processes, manual processes. And that created huge productivity, and things like the countries started making, like Britain had factories all over the world, steam driven, so did Germany and America. So that was the first industrial revolution, manual, local, steam got in the way, and we really moved forward. The second industrial revolution was just really before the war, before the Second World War, and through the First World War, and was the era of mass production. So that's the Henry Ford era, where mass production came along. It also was enabled by the market extending hugely with railroads and the telegraph network. So if you think about it, that was the network of the day, not the internet. They had distribution networks through railways, and they had communication and information through telegraph. And that made a huge difference to the large volume of products that companies were starting to make, like Ford, in mass production. The only problem was they put a lot of people out of work, and there was immense unemployment. And that led to the Great Depression in America was noted, but basically all over the world, and demand dropped because nobody had money. At the end of the supply chain, no one had money to spend. So then that moved into the 2 world wars. That kept people busy. And at the end of that, there was a lot of reconstruction to be done. And whilst the demand had been lower, a bit like we are at the moment with COVID, the demand for the previous years had been lower. Demand now was huge. So there was boundless demand. You could make anything you wanted and people would buy it because everybody needed to replace everything. And that was the days when the first computers and electricity, etc., really helped factories. And it's actually the days when ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning, the software products, started in about the late 60s. Ollie White and Orlicky and White created MRP, Material Requirements Planning. And that was really the first business system that looked at your materials management. So about this time, it wasn't just industrial automation that had been changed or the methods that had changed. We were now starting to support business processes with computers in the third industrial revolution. And then Germany, about 2012, started what we've now called the fourth industrial revolution. We're going to talk about that now, but basically, we are worried about jobs again. We've got great networks. We've got growing demand, we hope, coming now, and huge, huge technology. In the industry, the fourth industrial revolution, I 4.0, the other thing that is being talked about is CPPS, Cyber Physical Production Systems. So that's this whole thing about people and machines talking to each other and the environment talking. So that's a new thing, and that's been enabled by this massive increase in technology that we get. If I look at the next slide, another few things you need to think about are Moore's law still applies. So, and that is the capacity of microchips, bandwidth, and computers doubles every 18 months, which gives you almost exponential growth in technology, which tells you why this I4 has come about, and technology is advancing so fast these days. In a CISPRO survey of our manufacturing and distribution customers, we also found that, you can see, it's nearly half of the customers that we've got in manufacturing and warehousing, etc. We're looking at those processes to automate them and focus on more technology, not necessarily just business systems technology, but also process automation. So that was keen. We thought that was an interesting factor, and we see a lot of that happening. And then the money. Well, there's money that people are investing. There's lots of solutions, lots of technology coming out, and you can see the numbers. Between 1.2 trillion and 3.7 trillion dollars in the coming years are expected, the extra value. So there are a lot of people working on this stuff. So if we now look at what's the focus of this digital era and I 4.0, I'm going to show this in a model, but there's like vertical networking, which is the process technology, and then there's horizontal networking, which is the business process technology. So we'll come to that in a second. We're looking at digitizing services and products. So the way we receive orders, even how the products, some of the products will self-diagnose and tell when they need maintenance. So the whole product life cycle and the manufacturing life cycle are being affected by Industry 4. And as they're being affected, data is a bit like a fat person. It needs constant food. And really the I 4.0, the big thing that's happened is our access to data and the collection of it through smart devices, IoT, Internet of Things, and at the same time having to get that data securely because it's pervasive, the data. Next, you've got all the data, and now people have been very good at making decisions, but now the analysis, everything's got prediction in it. So what we're trying to do in Industry 4.0 is get as much out of the machines as we can, and the people do the rest. Again, we'll talk about that. And people are intelligent, but of course there's artificial intelligence and machine learning. And what you find nowadays is that, sorry, I'm just turning a page here, that there's quite a few new technologies coming about that enable machines and people to collaborate together. And the final point these days is we are becoming, most of us, more environmentally conscious. And the environment is not just a source of data for us, but we've got to be careful of our impact on the environment, which of course in the previous revolutions really people didn't care about. So those are some of the dimensions, or probably the main focus of Industry 4. So how is it shaping the environment? Well, the first thing I mentioned was there's process technology, which is the vertical side of all of this. So you're starting with automation. So we all know 4.0 is about automation. Industrialization is about productivity, cost reduction, and agility. So you want to be able to manufacture what customers want, and customers don't always want 50 of something. So there's a real move on that vertical horizon, that vertical axis, to enable quick changes in setup whilst you still maintain quality and you monitor quality. And if quality is going out of sync, it warns you, or it doesn't just warn you, it warns you and changes settings in the machines. And that's during the manufacturing process. So we monitor the manufacturing process itself, not just the product. We manufacture the process and we see, well, are the machines going out of sync? And before they actually go out of tolerance, and that's the prediction, the maintenance systems of today will warn you that the monitoring systems rather will warn your maintenance system that you need to fix this machine, or again, the machine will change settings itself. So that's the big change. We've actually had condition monitoring of machines for 20, 30 years, but it flagged things when they went wrong, not before they went wrong. The big difference nowadays with Industry 4.0 is that the element of, or the dimension of prediction driven by massive amounts of data everywhere. What happens is there's so much data, it gets sifted out and it can be useful, and now the machines can actually make some of the decisions themselves. Then the horizontal axis is the traditional supply chain, starting, and this can be repeated many times over. So this is just one stage in the supply chain, really. Your company can supply. In other words, we would buy, plan, make things, look at inventory, have stock, deliver, which is the distribution, the warehousing, the shipments, all that, and then marketing, selling, everything, accounting, all of the business functions are on the horizontal side. So you can see that on the horizontal side, we've got APIs for all, so that systems can talk to each other, not just CISPRO talking to CISPRO, but CISPRO talking to systems outside of CISPRO. We've got networks, obviously we've got the internet, which is becoming the way to do it, HTML and the internet. That has simplified things a lot. And we've got blockchain, which is there also as a global network of data with global security. And that was one of the things that was missing. If you look at bottom left, the sort of processes that are coming out now are 3D printing, robotics, drones, nanotechnology. And for those of you, I guess you know this better than me, but it's defined as the technology in dimensions less than 100 nanometers, which is pretty small. And it's about manipulation of atoms and molecules. So what it's about, it's pervasive in medical industries, manufacturing, where there are small tolerances. Nanotechnology is one of the technologies that came out. And on the the business side, so I'm saying the business supply chain, we've got cognitive computing. So what you end up with, and I'll just push a couple of buttons here. We've got all the data, but it's all out there. How do you get it? Well, you get it through systems, but in the Industry 4, we're tending to get it through Internet of Things with smart devices. We've had PLCs for years, process logic controllers. Now we've got much smarter pieces of equipment that can sift a lot of data and even tell business systems what to do. So you can get your manufacturing plant better at diagnosing its own process or where products are going out of quality, telling your your supply chain, your business systems, what to do to change the plan. And that's where the agility, this well, not quite instant, but relatively instant agility comes from. So that's all about the data and the processing, but you can't forget people, and people have always had to make the decisions. They've always had to drive what the data is telling them. Well, machines can do that with artificial intelligence, and their experience comes from machine learning. So the more data that they get fed, the better they are at handling some of the basic jobs that we would normally do ourselves. And that really is the essence, is how much is moving towards the AI and ML. And that's also using prediction from the bottom, predictive analytics. So it's trying to not tell you when things go out of tolerance. It's trying to say, this is going to go out of tolerance on that day, maybe you should do something. So it's proactive, it's bringing proaction into technology. And it allows you to change quicker, especially on the process side. It's easy to change a plan on paper or on your ERP system, but it ain't so easy to change it in production. So the last thing is that the environment, as I said earlier, we've still got to be cognizant of the environment. Yes, we get data from it. We can get it from people's clothes. We can get it from devices, watches, Apple phones, analog instruments. You can get data from everywhere, and you've got to know how to use it. So once you've done it, the environment has to be safe. So that's the security of data and our effects on the environment. So how do you get value out of this? Well, you've got to start somewhere. So business IT, typically you will use an enterprise resource planning system to, like CISPRO, to coordinate all the business functions from source or womb to tomb, source to delivery. So that's what you would do. How would you start? Well, it's easy to start. With these systems, many people don't actually use the more difficult parts, which are the material requirements planning. These are the things you must get into to use, to get your information correct so that your inventory is accurate, that your inventory mix, you've got the right balance of stock for the service delivery you're trying to get. Now that takes analytics, and it takes prediction, and it takes people. So there's a lot in enabling your business processes with an ERP system. And the planning and execution I've really covered. The other thing, of course, about the environment, was we're trying to minimize waste. That is waste of anything. It's the old just-in-time philosophy. We don't want to waste time, materials, anything. We don't want to destroy things or have too many byproducts we can't use for something else. And then the collaboration and analytics, obviously, that's machines and people. Process IT, I think we've all got the picture of that. Automation, machines talking to machines, machines talking to business systems, smart devices, moving towards the smart factory. Those are the types of things that we would expect to do. And then people. Cognitive computing is where the computers are doing the thinking. So that's the AI and ML. And we've got to change how you or we accept and react supply and demand. We've got to be smarter at working out what people need. We tend to make what we think they need, not what they do need. And quality of life for the environment. And some of that, what industries is that happening in? Aerospace have tried. Bosch is doing some stuff with its machines where the washing machines, etc., say, they stop working and say, listen, I'm going to break soon, and it flashes a light, and you can phone up, or it will phone up and get a service engineer to come. Very handy. In Kenya, we've got people, company Meds in the medical distribution business. They've been optimizing their ERP recently, linking it to devices in the warehouse and trying to do more of that. There's milk production all over. We've got milk production or milk customers, dairy customers. And, you know, there are thousands and thousands of orders in these businesses where there is a huge ability to use Industry 4. And the example I'd give you is actually a South African company who sells animals and it runs auctions, about 1,800 auctions a month, another customer of CISPRO. They put radio frequency ID tags, smart ones, on the sheep. And they monitor with the link to GPS, and they monitor the sheep. And then they get the processes behind it, and it's got some artificial intelligence, works out have the sheep, are they gaining weight properly for meat, and what's the wool quality? And they relate that back to how much exercise, where they ate, and they can find out that, oh, well, these 40 or 40,000 sheep, we need to run them around a bit more. They need some more exercise because they're too fat. And that's really happening. People are doing that with Industry 4.0. Vehicle assembly, plastic molding, all these industries in Kenya are starting to look at these things. So I think that's our time up. Thank you for listening. Enjoy the rest of the summit, and please have a look at our chat rooms on the summit. And thank you again, Ian, and all of you. That's me for now. Ciao.